This is the Neoliberal Round Podcast. Welcome back to Caribbean Thought. There's so much. Today, you guys are going to be teaching the class. The students will get to teach the class this week. It's something that we started last year, and we continue with that trend where the students will will formulate groups, and then you conduct your own research and provide a perspective based on the ethos and pathos of this course, and where we are going. Develop your presentations and present these research findings to the class as to what's going on in the other part of the Caribbean. What is the history of Haiti or Cuba? What is the socioeconomic position? We said Jamaica is a dependent capitalist, has a dependent capitalist economy, and the election is in the air. I'm going to be on an interview show on Friday, a Jamaican show. Well, I don't know much about the guy who's going to be interviewing me, but I know I'm going to be on a show. They want me to provide a perspective, and they want me to contribute on a show because election is in the air and everybody's talking about what's going on in Jamaica and the Caribbean. But you guys will get a chance to talk about what's going on in the Caribbean. But elections are in the air in Jamaica. There's much is happening. Lines are being drawn as usual. People are vying for power to take Jamaica in what direction, I don't know. One of the things I learned recently a very troubling news, because about a couple of weeks ago we learned that crime and violence went from 16% to 8.2%. No, sorry, poverty. Huge decrease in poverty, which probably would suggest that the economy is doing much better because, and one of the reasons the Prime Minister alluded to is because of employment. More people are employed, more opportunities, more call center jobs are coming in much more development is taking place. However, I was reading the newspaper recently, and I learned that Jamaica's monetary base is flattening out. In other words, the monetary reserves, we only have $17 billion left in circulation. It's $17 billion less money, US dollar, in circulation. That's what we are learning. We're learning that that's troubling news, because it can destabilize the Jamaican economy. And I don't know I think it was mentioned on Friday. I don't know if they're going to address that, but that can be a serious issue, even at a very difficult time right now, because the world is not promoting the world is not talking about globalization in the way that we know globalization. People should be talking about globalization. The US is charging reciprocal tariffs so that they can continue to benefit from supernormal gains at the expense of the other. That much we know, because resources aren't unlimited. The way in which the world is, there is limitation. 3 persons cannot occupy the same space. So if the US is in the Americas, the US is hoarding that wealth onto itself, then there's not much space left for the other countries, satellite countries. And that's part of the policy, the competitive policy throughout the world. But anyway, so the money is an issue in Jamaica, and part of the problem is, why is it that Jamaica's monetary reserves or our monetary reserves have been decreased by $17 billion? Is it because people, in terms of consumer, there's not much consumer confidence in the Jamaican economy, especially in the banking system. We heard what happened with, and of course, maybe because of the issue of corruption, because as much as corruption has been steady over the past 2-3 years, there's not much gain. There's not much. It hasn't gone up or down. If corruption has been just about the same, and it's unacceptable. But what we know is that many people are losing money from the Jamaican banks. Usain Bolt lost, is it millions or billions of dollars from the banking system? And there are many other people who have done so. You go to Jamaica, to the banks, it takes forever to do things. So people don't want to park their money in Jamaica or invest because it's going to take a very long time to take it out. And in fact, to put the money there probably take a long time too. So, so part of what the Caribbean and Jamaica have to think about is the turnaround time is very important. You have to reduce the turnaround time to get things done. Not only that, how safe is your money when you put it in the bank? Can you get the money out? So that's part of the thinking when you think, and that's a very serious issue. But anyways, that's one of the current trends, one of the things that's happening in society that I wanted to draw attention to. I don't know if there's anything that's happening in the Caribbean that you guys are gonna want to draw attention to before we get into the class. Anybody want to draw any attention to any current trend, anything happening in Jamaica, the Caribbean, or anything in the world that can affect the Caribbean that you guys want to draw attention to before we get into the class?
Sir, can I ask you something?
What's that?
What do you think about what is going on in Kenya?
Tell me what's going on in Kenya.
A lot of unrest. The Gen Z, based off, I think it was some finance bill that
I don't know anything like that. You guys, you're actually giving me news, so that's really good. Thank you for telling me what is going. I have not been on top of the latest I hear about Kenya is that they were trying to send a peacekeeping troop from Kenya to Haiti because the post-industrial countries didn't want to do that. But now, of course, Kenyans were opposed to that.
That was many moons ago.
Right. So now, what's going on? Now we're hearing about
based off some finance bill. The people feel that they were being heavily taxed, so there are a lot of unrest. So instructions were given by Mr. Ruto to shoot them in the leg.
What?
Yeah, so a lot has died. A lot of college students, because they're the one that is out there demonstrating. There's been a lot of killings of students, and he will not back down. I think another country has sent in some military aid to assist him, but it's just not good. It's like Kenya is just burning. Because the police, I can't believe it's your black brother, your black sister, and the president says shoot, and they're going out there shooting the students in the leg. So many have died. It's just, and nobody's paying them any mind.
Wow, I'm gonna have to do some reading about this story. It's quite unfortunate
Yes.
that this is happening, that leaders would become, this is not this kind of leadership, these kind of behaviors where leaders and governments are shooting their citizens in order to quell their protestation or their demonstration. That is anti-African. That is not, and in fact, that's not how governments are supposed to operate. But that's what's happening today. How can people, the citizens should be able to protest, should be able to organize and demonstrate, because that when you study protest movements, when you study unions, when you study change, especially depending on who require the change, then especially if it's the masses, people who are not in power, then of course the greatest power is when you can organize. Okay, but go ahead.
All right. You can't speak out. I remember last week a teacher who is also a blogger, he was speaking out against the government and they sent for him in his home and they took him to jail and he was beaten and he was killed.
What does this say about what's going on just globally in the world today? Because it's not just happening in Kenya. Um,
Right.
you find that, say, for example, in the US, they placed a gag order on
Mm-hmm.
protesters in Philadelphia. The mayor of Philadelphia placed a gag order in Philadelphia, so to she as in an attempt to prevent protesters or workers from demonstrating and protesting
Mm-hmm.
against in terms of working conditions or demanding for better wages and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And if that doesn't work, then they're sending the military because at one point we hear that Donald Trump was threatening to sending the national reserves. In a
But you
sense,
know,
go ahead.
I read in the Gleaner that I think in one of those states, Trump ICE went in to arrest some illegal persons, and a Jamaican got injured and was in the hospital in serious condition, and he passed up. He passed away. It's a farm worker that was sent there to work,
Oh wow.
and he died. But we have no say as a
So
people as
oh,
to what happened to us. People decide, people dictate, and if you open your mouth, you will there will be consequences meted out to us. I mean, if we are able
so
to
then
talk,
so the question is, are we truly free if you can't say in this
we are
21st
not
century,
free. We are not
if
free
you
any
can't
at
say,
all.
yeah, if you can't say what you want to say, if you can't defend your citizens when they go overseas to work,
Mhm.
or what does it say about what's going on in terms of geopolitics today? What does it say
We are
about,
not we are not free any at
are
all.
we
We
truly
think
free?
that we are free, but
And
we
as
are
we
not.
get
We
ready
are
to celebrate,
nowhere
as
free.
many Caribbean islands get ready to celebrate independence and so on, and as we get ready to elect a new government, you ask the question: what has the Jamaican government done as it relates to advocating for one of their citizens who were hurt, and well, not just hurt, was killed,
We have not heard anything from. I've not heard
as it
anything
relates to this raid
as it relates to this
and the
raid and
operations
this.
and these actions.
I don't think they will speak out against it.
And that is why I talk about the issue of, when Caribbean countries were becoming independent in the 19 they were discussing independence in the 1950s, going to do what the 1960s. The idea, the independence that we should have been talking about is a kind of a united independence, not a divided one until where Caribbean islands were divided. Their division, their division fuel was part of their vulnerability, or what could help fix the issue of their vulnerability was their size. Their size was a very important issue. And then of course, forming deep connections with people in the diaspora who occupy certain positions as well, and finding creative ways to strategically reposition the Caribbean, where they can take on the post-industrial, the former colonial powers. That is not where these countries are right now. I'm
No.
telling you that, Leon. Leon.
Sir, the recent thing that happened with the meeting when the St. Lucian opposition was saying
Yes.
that opposition leader was saying that they should the members of CARICOM should break away from CARICOM because the CARICOM the organization that is CARICOM, which are all the Caribbean nations together, they're not negotiating on their behalf. Everything that happens in CARICOM does not benefit the people or the nations there. They only benefit the governments. So he was saying that we should break away from CARICOM because CARICOM is not helping us. It's like it was set up to keep us in poverty. Basically, was what he was saying. And when you look at it for real,
the CARICOM is
you
like
realize that
it's a bureaucracy. It's more a bureaucracy, a machinery that represents the Washington consensus. Sorry, I apologize again. Go ahead.
No. That is exactly what it is, because the educational systems are different, and it should be one thing. When you try to get benefits from CARICOM, it takes so long. Sometimes people die before the benefits come along. So when you look at that, you realize that it's just a system set up just to keep us down,
And
basically. So they're saying,
yeah, I agree with you, and I believe that as a people, I don't think our Caribbean leaders have facilitated the kind of Caribbean spirit, the kind of Caribbean unity that we need to become as competitive Caribbean countries, so we can compete against I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, I'm in the US, but we can compete against the US and compete against Canada. It's as if our mindset is to be able to be in front of the other Caribbean countries, where Jamaica can be in front to get certain benefits and aid, and then we dole it out to the others. You know, if the Caribbean was moved away from this kind of dependency to where they are willing to make the hard sacrifices like Chioli, okay, and come together in a united way, I believe, and then take advantage of the investment that's already here, make some really big time decisions, as taking back your beaches, taking back your hotels, taking back some of, but of course that's going to be difficult. You have to first develop a strategy. Look at what Russia did. You see what Russia did? Russia create a system where they went to war with Ukraine, and then the other countries threatened embargoes and threatened to take away business. But Vladimir Putin had created a situation where certain individuals in the US, the business class, he developed a very strong and close relationship with the business class, so that when they wanted to make the decisions, okay, to pull out of any negotiation with Russia, it was very difficult. It was, and even today, as much as you hear about embargoes and so on and so forth that we have against Russia, the US and many European countries and many countries in the world today are still doing business with Russia. Still, say for example, I live in Germantown. There is a Russian oil company, Blue Oil, in Germantown. We buy Russian oil, and I mean, so because if they were to discontinue that, it's going to cripple the local economy, or it's going to affect certain businesses. And business is important. Money is important. The bottom line is important. And so therefore, Vladimir Putin is a thinker. They are thinking strategically. They're thinking strategically. So the thing is, what is the strategy in the Caribbean? I've talked about strategy. Strategy, I don't think, do we think, and when we teach our kids, do we teach strategy? That's what's happening in other parts of the world. But what's happening? Are we teaching strategy, or are we teaching them how to do accounts, how to make money and to give it back to the rich? Are we teaching, what are we teaching our children? And how are we strategizing at the governmental level and at the academic level, so that we can compete internationally and reposition our peoples and our country over the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, because it takes time. It may take a lifetime, but we want to always constantly think and strategize. And I think you are at that level. We are at that level in Jamaica now, where we have seen what our fathers and forefathers and great forefathers, what they have done. okay, and the freedoms that they have negotiated from our and stemming from the past to where we are now. And sometimes we must look at them and say, no, we do not appreciate it. Sometimes okay, things will not change. At some point, we will have to look our JLP fathers in the face and say, whether or not you're JLP, why did you do this? Or PNP, whether or not it's, but we create labels as a way to mitigate and to minimize change and progress.
Sir.
Yes.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
When I look at CARICOM and when I look at ECOWAS, both bodies are there to protect the CARICOM, the Caribbean, ECOWAS, the countries in Africa. But yet still, we are still governed by the white man rule. There is nothing.
Yeah. Look what's going on with Haiti. Who governs Haiti? Who governs Haiti? Who governs Haiti?
America and Europe and France.
Yes,
and
a gang of five.
But yes, gang of five.
So why do you think we have gangs roaming in Haiti? Because these people in Haiti, they have pride. After they have fought for their freedoms, now you have people outside of Haiti installing a prime minister when they are an independent. In fact, they're not even an independent
country. The question I keep asking,
yeah,
Haiti is such a poor country. Who is, what's the word? Where barbecue and all those guys get it? Who is supporting them? Where do barbecue get guns and ammunition and money constantly? They are being supported by another source. From France, maybe from America, maybe from Europe, but who is supporting
the guns come from North America. Yes, it's from North America. And please remember, it's easy to get guns here in the US.
Listen, they could have used a drone and take out barbecue many moons ago, but they will not do that because they don't want stability within that country.
Well, you don't want stability within the Caribbean. You don't want the Caribbean. You don't want, because if the Caribbean become too stable and become too developed and competitive, it is going to affect the position of the status quo of the US.
Because Canada, right now,
yes,
it's only me and Motley I see will stand up to those people on any stage. She's not afraid to speak.
Yes.
But I don't see what trade is going on within CARICOM with the different countries. They say it's a free market. I don't know. I don't see nothing going on. They're not there.
Yeah.
Being governed by another system. And then whenever whatever that system want to impose upon us, this is what they impose upon us in order to please that system.
That is true. And by the way, just so you know, the US imposed a 1% tax or tariff on export, on remittances.
Yes, I know. We found that
guys, I haven't, usually when I have these classes, I talk about what's going on in the world, or what as it affects Jamaica and the Caribbean. And not this class, in a previous class, I had a big debate. The students jumped on me. They were fighting me down, not in a negative way, but they were all coming down on me because they were saying, you think the US is all that, and you think the US is all this. If Jamaica wants to invest in China, what is wrong with that? But I was saying that I have a problem with Jamaica allowing China to invest allowing China. The relationship between China and the US. I didn't like the relationship. I didn't like that kind of, because we are still reliant on the external. We're still looking to Bob Marley said, I don't look to the East, which is China, and I don't look to the West, which is the US, capitalism. I look to the I look to us. Okay. And so we have to build the indomitable spirit of the us, of the I and I, of the Caribbean, of the you, of the me within the Caribbean.
Most of us don't have that within us to build. We don't have it within. And unless we find that spirit within us to stand up, well, we will never stand. A few may want to stand, but others will back down.
Yeah, and you look at how is some countries like Faso, how are the what's that country?
Burkina Faso.
How are they doing it?
Mhm.
How are they able to do that?
Listen to me. 20,000 women came out last week to work for free on the road, carrying blocks, mixing cement.
In Burkina Faso?
Yes.
Okay, stop, really. This is what I'm talking about. You know, when I tell people about our system, when you study, this class, I never hone in on the African paradigm or Africology. I haven't really done that, or the Afrocentric paradigm. But one of the things we talk about, the African spirit, one of the things that define the African and how we work is that the sense of community,
Yes.
and that sense of how we work. They are willing to go into the field to help each other, because
Yes.
they're not thinking in capitalistic ways.
Mm-mm.
The Eurocentric ways, we think in capitalistic ways, think in competitive ways. In order for a man to go on the road, you have to pay him. You have to pay him. So nothing
Yes.
will get done because he wants money, he wants a bread. Okay. In order for some, but look what they have done. They're willing to work together for free and to share what they
Free
have in order to get the country.
in
Wow,
order to
that
get the
is not
country.
capitalism, guys. And Jamaica and the Caribbean is a dependent capitalist country. That attitude is koinonia. It's community. It's a spirit of inclusion. That is against the kind of economic system that we have inherited. It is against who we are and who we were as a people, stemming from Africa. Because the Africans, why you think the Africans would share what they have, and that is why Europe was able to underdevelop Africa and defeat Africa, because the Africans, they were civilized and they thought everybody had civilization too. They were largely peaceful and did not expect the Ottomans and all this to war and with them. But this is what has defined these people. It helped them to reach a place of development and growth. Yes.
Burkina Faso people from the diaspora going back home to Burkina Faso to invest.
Yes.
So
why? Why are they going back home?
I think those people really love their country and maybe had to leave because of what was going on there.
And the leader is organized. They have a very
organized
system.
He built a canal recently, place where they say that water could not have come. He built a canal. They planted like 2 million trees last week.
Yeah.
So they're doing stuff.
Yeah, I know we can't, but this is what we're talking about, guys. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Leon.
You're welcome.
Who else? Who else? Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Lily. Thank you so much. This is the kind of discussion we need to have in this class. By the way, for those of us who are not aware, I published an article in the Jamaica Gleaner. I did share it. I shared it with the class, I believe. It's entitled Jesus. It's not it's an editorial. It's an op-ed. So usually I will share a letter and they'll be published. But this time I published an op-ed, which is an editorial, and it's at the front page of the Sunday Gleaner, dated Sunday, July 13th, 2025. The title of the editorial or the op-ed is Jesus Didn't Found Christianity. He Undermined Religious Elitism. Did any of you read it? Or did any of you peruse it?
No, sir.
What? Your professor wrote an article in the Jamaican Gleaner.
Sir, normally that I would have gone to the Gleaner on a Sunday and read those kind of articles, but this Sunday, no. So I guess
thought you guys read it and were mad with me. I'm like, what the hell? What is Renaldo doing? I'm not even.
No, you have to send the link, sir. Ensure that that link is on Zoom so it can
Yes.
Go ahead and read it.
I write a lot. I write extremely a lot. And I'm going to send it to you. So there it is. It's in the Jamaica Gleaner. I'm thinking, I don't think we have time to go over it today because I'm going to move into the group presentations. I was just talking to give you guys time to get yourself ready to present. But it is a powerful article. I'm trying to find it here. I sent it to you guys right there. Bring it back up here. Oops. Okay, there we go. It's entitled, Jesus Didn't Found Christianity, He Undermined Religious Elitism. And by the way, you guys, I don't know if you guys had a chance to read, did you guys read, watch the lecture? The lecture is for last week and the materials for last week. I hope you guys had gotten a chance to do that. But one of the things I asked as you guys got ready to, as you got ready to watch, sometimes I might text something. It's for reflection. As you read or as you watch, you can think about it. Because when you ask yourself certain questions and then you go to the material, I find that people learn much more quickly because and it helps with memory. If you just read something and put it down, it's not as memorable. But when you approach something, a material, stimuli, okay, with a question, with a wavering mind, with a quizzical mind or something, and then you read with that focus, it will help you. It will help to situate you and it will help you to remember. Last week I had asked, as you got ready to watch, I said, when you're finished watching, then you will know how to reflect, because some of you had asked some questions. I said, when you finish watching, then you'll know how to reflect. But zero in on Caribbean theology, what it is based on, what you have gleaned, and how does it respond to our experience. And Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper, who was the original professor for this course, who developed the course and was president at JTS, pastor, and was also pastor in the missionary church. He wrote a book about Caribbean theology, and he talked about how it should respond to the issues of the day. It should speak to the experience of the Caribbean people. And of course, one of the things, if you are theologians or study theology, one of the things that you will come to understand or will explore is they'll ask you, what is your Christology? What is your Christology? In other words, what is your theology of Christ? The theology of Christ. And they may ask you, is it transcendent? Do you have a transcendent approach or transcendent approach? Okay. Is it a top-down approach or from the bottom up? So then you ask all those questions, and then when you start reading into these things, it will help to focus your mind. But I said, Jesus didn't found Christianity, he undermined religious elitism. And last week, you were supposed to watch a lecture, and I said to you, Rastafari has theological roots grounded in African traditions and our experience. And there's some amount of Christian tradition is found within Rastafarianism, okay? Because it's, in a sense, it's a bit hybrid, but what it is not devoid of its African roots, and it will not bastardize its African experience into something else. Christianity, on the other hand, has African influences. However, it will not tell you that it is African. Okay, it will not tell you that it has bastardized or bastardized anything African. Anything it has taken from Africa has been wiped clean to make it look as if it were not African at all. Rastafarians have not done that. They have created a religion that where they will tell you that this is from the Bible, or they will tell you that this is from Africa. But within the Christian experience, Nothing is African, okay? Nothing is African within the Christian experience, or they will not tell you that. But Rastafari has theological roots grounded in African traditions and our experience. What if Christianity or revivalism? On the other, moving further, Caribbean theology should not be Christian theology. Caribbean theology should not be Christian theology. And if you read Garnet Roper's book, it will help you with this question. Now, the question is that fair to say? Is it fair to say that Caribbean theology should not be Christian theology? The final class, I will answer this question. The final class, because I will ask you, should theology transcend culture? Should theology transcend culture? Now, because Christian theology is Eurocentric, so Caribbean theology within the post-colonial must come to terms with that. And remember, post-colonialism does not suggest the end of colonialism, but post-colonialism suggests that colonization still exists, but in a new form. But what post-colonialism does, it looks at the lingering effects of colonization. Say, for example, the issue of colorism and the use of bleaching cream, where some persons who were affected by colonization still today are invested in certain creams to make themselves look like the other, like what they were taught was better than themselves. And there are people who would look at people like Vibes Cartel and people like who are exposed in those ways, who bleach their skin. And some people would look, and even some religious figures, some Christian, that would look down on them and said, "Oh, wow, why are they bleaching their skin?" But how different is that from the bleaching, the other kind of bleaching that takes place, where persons would bleach their culture, bleach their spiritual traditions, seeing it as evil, seeing and taking on ideas from the other, okay, about it, and even making it a cultural defense for why something should not be embraced, still taken from the other. So you can bleach your skin, which is one of the effects of colonization. Post-colonialism looks at the lingering effects, the socio-political, historical effects of colonization, the damage done to the African, okay, and where that African is today, or the damage done to the Indian, or the damage done to the indentured laborer from China, and where he is today and what he is doing. Some go as far as bleaching the skin, some go as far as disdaining their intellect, their spirituality, or historical spirituality. So again, there are those who look at the person who is bleaching their skin as one of the effects of the damage done to the black man, or to the black and brown man, where he thinks that he must cleanse his skin so that it looks white, while there are those on the other side, the African, who believe he must cleanse his spirituality so that he becomes like the other. So you can you will either bleach your color, you will either change your color, or you will either change your spirituality or your traditions. Of course, that's one way of looking at it. Now, Jesus didn't found Christianity. He undermined religious elitism. And in the article, I said, when most people think of Jesus, they picture him as the founder of Christianity, a teacher sent to save sinners from hell and to establish a new religion. But this might be a misreading of both his mission and his message. What if Jesus didn't come to start a new faith tradition at all? What if instead his mission was to expand an existing one, specifically to open up the privileges of Jewish spiritual life to those outside the bloodline? Because you see, Jesus was a Jew, teaching within a Jewish context. His teachings were about abandoning the covenant. Sorry, his teachings were not about abandoning the covenant, but broadening it. His most radical claim wasn't, I am the Messiah, but rather, you belong to. So, through Jesus, Gentiles who are outsiders could be brought into the Jewish household, not by ancestry, but by faith. So now they are now part of the Jewish family. They are now considered Jews or Jewish. That's the idea, and that was what the scribes and the Sadducees and the Pharisees and all the fathers of the faith and of the culture, the fathers of the culture had challenged and contested Jesus about. He contested them to say, how are you allowing these people to come to our house and to be part of us, as if they're, and Jesus was saying, well, yeah, they're part of me because they follow me and they believe on me, and if they're believing me and we're friends, then we are one. He was creating a new system. It was revolutionary. It was different. This was more than inclusivity. It was a profound challenge to the deeply held belief that access to God was tribal. Yes, access to God was tribal. Again, access to God was tribal. So the Jews had their God, yes? And all these cultures had their gods. In Africa, oh yes, they had their religion. India, they have their Hindu. In China, they have the Eastern religion. This was, but Jesus came along, and within Jerusalem, the Gentiles in those areas, they were excluded. They weren't part of this culture. They weren't part of this family. And Jesus wanted them to, and he believed in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This was more than inclusivity, though. It was a profound challenge to the deeply held belief that access to God was tribal, inherited, or culturally locked. So Jesus preached that the unclean, the unlearned, and even the unloved could become chosen by relationship rather than spiritual. That was Jesus talking to his friends, telling them that, hey, you can be about, it's like Renaldo was, but now we talk about the issue of marriage. Renaldo is saying, you can become part of the McKenzie family. That's ludicrous. No, you have to be born into the McKenzie family in order to get the inheritance, in order to get our land and stuff. You can't get that. But here comes Renaldo saying, no, if you love me and believe in me and you do what I do, you don't have to be circumcised. You don't have to cut, you don't have to be circumcised or born. Once you believe in me and we're brothers and we hang out together and we do stuff together and we love one another, then guess what? My family is now your family, now we are one. And now the parents were mad. So to the religious authorities of the time, this was outrageous. Men like Peter and John, fishermen without education or pedigree, were now claiming access to God's blessing, as were tax collectors, Samaritans, and Roman centurions. Let me say this again. This was more than inclusivity. It was a profound challenge to the deeply held belief that access to God was tribal, inherited, or culturally locked. Jesus preached that the unclean, the unlearned, and even the unloved could become chosen by relationship rather than ritual. By relationship rather than by ritual. So to the religious authorities of the time, this was outrageous. Men like Peter and John, fishermen without education or pedigree, were now claiming access to God's blessings, as were tax collectors, Samaritans, and Roman centurions. So it wasn't just heretical, it was destabilizing. It threatened, again, it wasn't just heretical, it was destabilizing. It threatened, what Jesus did threatened the social and theological order. It threatened the social and theological order. So Jesus was condemned and killed, not just for who he claimed to be, but for the people he dared to include. The people he dared to include. The people he dared to include. Who are people including today? Anyways, he didn't try to abolish Judaism. He tried to universalize its embrace. He didn't try to abolish Judaism. Jesus didn't try to do that. That was not Jesus's goal. What he tried to do was to universalize its embrace, to bring more people part of the Jewish household or the family, so that more people can be part of the culture. More of us can be part of their inheritance. So yes, yet history took a turn Jesus may never have intended. And I said to somebody recently, history is for the future. Okay? Men move in the now, but they make sense of it in the future. So history took a turn Jesus may never have intended. As his followers faced rejection from Jewish communities, they created a new identity. Let me say that again. Yet history took a turn Jesus may never have intended. As his followers faced rejection from Jewish communities, they created a new identity. Baptism replaced circumcision. Fellowship replaced synagogue. And thus, Christianity was born, not so much as a new religion, but as a refuge for spiritual outsiders. Over time, this new faith made the same mistake Jesus came to correct. It created its own walls, doctrines, and boundaries of belonging. Today, many Christians still see themselves as grafted into the tree of Israel, claiming inheritance through faith in Jesus. Again, today, many Christians in the Caribbean and the world, let's say for Caribbean thought, many Christians in Jamaica still see themselves as grafted into the tree of Israel, claiming inheritance through faith in Jesus. Meanwhile, many Jewish communities reject this claim, and the house remains divided. The result is centuries of tension built on a shared origin, but a fractured identity. The people. So here's the deeper question. Here's the deeper question. Must one become a Jew or a Christian to be blessed by God? Is divine love tribal or is it universal? Again, here is the deeper question for reflection. Must one become a Jew or a Christian? Or a Muslim or an African or an Obeah to be blessed by God? Is divine love, and remember we say that God is what? God is than that which nothing greater can be conceived or imagined. God is unlimited. It is we who are limited. We in our limitations make sense of the limitless possibilities. Yet God in his universality, yes, and has sought it well to accept. We are just ants. But if you look at these ants trying to make sense, but I'll accept it because he doesn't know. Yes? It is man who makes sense of the other man's worship as unto God, as if that man is God. Yet God is looking down. Anyways, today many Christians still see themselves as grafted into the tree of life, claiming inheritance through faith in Jesus. Meanwhile, many Jewish communities reject this claim, and the house remains divided. So here's the deeper question. Must one become a Jew or a Christian to be blessed by God? God, we say, is, again, God is unlimited. We are limited. We, in our limitations, make sense of the limitless possibilities of life. Remember that. Yes? We are limited. God is unlimited. God is more than we can ever ask. Sorry, God is than that we can ever ask or imagine, that we can ever conceive of. So is divine love tribal or is it universal? Jesus didn't seem interested in that kind of gatekeeping. Jesus didn't, let me say this again. Is divine love tribal or is it universal? Jesus didn't seem interested in that kind of gatekeeping. What is it to gatekeep? You know, the insurance companies, they gatekeep. Certain companies, they gatekeep, like who can come in, who they can let in. And people form associations and groups and stuff and unions and stuff to prevent other people from coming in so as to protect the purity of their thing and to protect the benefits that their people receive over the others. You know, that the competitiveness, we talk about competitive. Earlier we were talking about the African who is not competitive, but that competitive spirit has been inherited. Our independence, when we got independence and our freedom, we took on Eurocentric ideology, we took on Eurocentric behavior, that competitive nature that where we now put us at. We talked about that. We talked about Burkina Faso and how those women are able to come out in a communal way and work, and then as against a dependent capitalist culture where everything you have to pay a man something in order to get things done. Okay, that's the kind of competitive nature that defies the post-industrial as against what had defined the global North, the global South, the developed, the black and brown man who comes from Africa. And his attitude, you see, his behavior, his culture, who he is, has been, because he's been divorced from his spirituality. Because you see, what it is to be spiritual, there is no difference between the African spirituality and his person. The spirituality and the person, there's no difference between the two. Jesus didn't seem interested in that kind of gatekeeping. He offered something far more radical than religion. He offered relationship, a kinship that defied bloodline and status. His vision was not of religious dominance. And just so you know, Ignatius gave the church a Roman identity so as to raise the church's status in the first 100 years of Christianity. For those of us who don't study church history, the first 100. Church, raise the church's status. And please remember that the religious groups were competing for dominance of the day. And so Ignatius thought it quite a brilliant idea to give the church, to structure the church, give it a Roman identity, a Roman structure. And if he does that, maybe it will raise the status of the church and make it more dominant than the other religious groups. But anyways, Jesus offered relationship though. He wasn't about creating institution. He offered relationship, a kinship that defied bloodline and status. His vision was not of religious dominance, but of spiritual belonging. His spiritual belonging. Because these people didn't belong anywhere. And Jesus, who was a Jew, wanted, no. We have to bring these people. Why is it only for us? Let's share our family, our culture with. And Jesus was defiant about that. He offered relationship, a kinship that defied bloodline and status. His vision was not of religious dominance, but of spiritual belonging. His revolution wasn't in doctrine. His revolution was not in doctrine, but in the destruction of spiritual elitism. And that's what has happened in the world today, in some of these countries, post-colonial countries, where they create an elite class, an elite group of people who act as the house slaves or the whippers who would whip the others. And yes, anyways, I won't get into that right now. ironically, by institutionalizing Christ's message, the early church may have missed it. Perhaps the true gospel is not about escaping hell or earning heaven. It's about dismantling the idea that anyone is spiritually superior to anyone else. Perhaps the true gospel is not about escaping hell or earning heaven. It's about dismantling the idea that anyone is spiritually superior to anyone else. It's about creating space for the stranger to become family, not by erasing identity, but by expanding it. In the end, Jesus didn't come to build a church. He came to break open a household. That article is available in the Jamaica Gleaner. And the last class we're going to talk about two things. One, should theology transcend culture? That's one. Yet people will say, well, it is within the bowels of culture that we develop theological reflections. Yet we might say that it is many cultures today had morphed into religious institution over time. We can talk about that later on. The last class we talk about that, which is 2 classes from today. All right, guys, we will now begin. We will have 3 groups. We will have 4 groups present today, or 3 groups present today. And so we will now pause from this because we were following this from last week's class. Today we will move to the group presentations. And who will present first, guys?
Sir, group 1, we're having a little technical difficulty, so we're asking you if you can go ahead and then we'll fill in as you go along, please.
Well, I'm not understanding the question. You want another present?
Yes, sir.
Okay, group 2, are you ready?
Of course I am. I'm always here for you whenever you need me.
Google, I'm not talking to Google. Hey, Google.
Fun, am I right?
I'm not talking to you. Okay. I never said Google. Okay, guys. Group 2, are you ready? Group 2, my computer.
Yes, sir, we are ready.
All right, group 2, the floor is yours. The floor is
on the screen.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me pull up the PowerPoint.
For those of us who are watching at home or wherever you are in the world, this is Caribbean Thought Lecture 10. Chantel, by the way, when is the exam? When is exams, guys?
Sir, August 11 it's starting. That's our exam. That's Caribbean Thought exam.
August 11. Oh, great. So we have time. So we have class this week, and then we have class next week, which is good. And then the 28th, I'll be able to teach. Good. Hopefully I can get Richard Beckford, a politician. I want to invite 2 other politicians here and we could have a debate with them. But I don't know if we can get somebody from JLP and PNP. Since it's election time, I don't know if that's going to be possible.
Sir, we won't have our revision class again.
Wait, hold up. Oh, wait. The 14th, this class, we are presenting this week, next week, and then the 28th is the final class. I mean, the final class. And then, and then you have 1 week. Do you have a study break for this semester? You guys get study break?
Not that I know of, sir.
No, sir. No.
Oh, so we have 1. Okay, so the 4th of August is the revision class, okay? And then the 28th is the final lecture. All right? Okay? All right, you have the floor now. Go ahead. Chantel, can you facilitate this section, please? I'm going to step away for a quick minute.
Okay.
I love this. Okay, which group is this? No, you have to go back from the beginning because I missed the little thing that went across the screen. Contributors. I love it. Annalisa, yeah.
So I can't see anything. My screen is blank.
Something is wrong with your screen, but I'm seeing everything. It's
Not
beautiful.
seeing anything
We're
either.
not seeing anything, sir. You're not enjoying it.
Based on what you're doing with the Zoom, I believe only you are able to see the videos.
All right.
Oh my God.
Really? All right, hold up. Live stream.
That's what it says. It said that only
How do I do this?
only you're able.
Okay, hold on. Let me see how to do this. How do I share my screen again, Chantel? How do I give somebody how do
It
I
said
do
that the meeting is in focus mode.
Oh
And
yes.
host
How
can
do
see
I
the
take it?
video.
How do I take it out of? Yes, I did put it in focus. So I need to. So I need to remove it. I don't know how to do that. Oh, stop focus mode. But focus mode is ending. Participants who started video. Okay, guys, focus mode has ended. So try and see if you have that access.
Is everyone able to see it now?
Somebody said that they're experiencing low blood sugar in group 1, so they need time.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Group 3.
Group 3. All right, have a sweet, have a candy. Have a candy, have a sweet.
No, sir, not candy. I need to eat.
Not that simple for her.
Well, eat then, man. Eat. Why you not eating? This is a Zoom class. And I can't see any of your faces. Anyway, so yeah, go ahead. And we're doing group 2 right now, right? Is this group 2?
Correct. Is everyone able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yes, I can.
Great. All right, I'm going to pause my mic and I'm going to step away for a minute, okay? Go ahead, guys.
Okay.
By the way, how long is the presentation?
Sir, do you have a particular time that you're giving to us? You didn't tell us how long we
You
have.
know what? You know what? Let's go through with it. It's fine. I can't wait to hear what you have gathered. So go ahead. All right. So now we have group 2 will be presenting on Haiti and St. Kitts and Nevis. Contributors are Annalisa Wright, Lilith, Henry Dwayne McCoy, Diana Campbell, and Davina Barrett. And yeah, that's it.
Good afternoon, guys, or good evening, guys. This is group 2. We're presenting on Haiti and St. Kitts and the Nevis, as Sir would have mentioned. This presentation seeks to explore 2 Caribbean nations, Haiti and St. Kitts, and this presentation is going to be solely focused on their socio, political, and economic landscapes, their religious composition, the demographic structure, the historical roots, the global standing, and the notable figures. With that being said, I'm going to hand over to my first presenter.
All right. So let's take a look on the history. So it says that the St. Kitts and Nevis were originally inhabited by indigenous peoples, including the Siboney, Arawak, and later the Caribs. The Caribs named St. Kitts, not sure what's that word, meaning fertile land. And the Nevis was called Owale, meaning land of beautiful waters. All right, so continuing the history, so in the 1493, Christopher Columbus sighted the island on his record voyage to the New World. In 1623, the British established their first colony in the Caribbean here, led by Sir Thomas Warner. 1624, the French also settled on St. Kitts, and the island was jointly occupied for a time before tension grew. In the 1626, the British and French allied to massacre the Caribs, eliminating most of the indigenous population. And last but not least, 1628, the British colonized navies. Let's take a look on the social, political, economic. So what they have here is a political structure. Then they would have a federal structure. They have also political parties and also governance and stability.
So basically, let me expound on these structures. So the government structure is a semi-presidential republic. And the capital is Port-au-Prince. So there's no elected president or parliament. There hasn't been any no elected presidents or parliament since between 2021 to 2023. So the power is held by a transactional council and it's backed by international actors. No, wait, sir. That's wrong.
By the way, I noticed you start with Christopher Columbus discovering. Sorry, you start with Christopher Columbus coming to the Caribbean in 1493. So I'm citing the island in 1493. And no discussion about whether or not Africans were engaged in the country before, or nothing to that effect. What happened before Christopher Columbus arrived?
So should I continue?
Yes.
All right. So in relation to the political structure, the type of government is a federal parliamentarian democracy under a constitutional monarchy. And the head of state is the British monarchy. So in the St. Kitts, the prime minister leads the executive branch. Next, the federal structure. So St. Kitts and Nevis are one nation, but they function as a federation. So Nevis has its own Nevis Island Administration, that's known as the NIA, with a significant autonomy, and this includes its own premier and local legislature. There are also occasional tensions due to the Nevisans being called for greater autonomy or independence. Political parties now. The major parties in St. Kitts include the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, the People's Action Movement Party, the Concerned Citizens Movement, and the Nevis Reformation Party. And in regards to the governance and stability, they're a generally stable democracy with peaceful elections and freedom for the press. In addition to that, members are regionally and internationally organized, like the Commonwealth and the United Nations. Davila?
All right, so religious breakdown and main religions. All right, so for the Anglican, so that's 25 to 30%. The Methodist, that's 20 to 25%. Pentecostal 10 to 15%, the Roman Catholic 8 to 10%, Moravian 6 to 8%, the Seventh-day Adventists 5 to 7%, Evangelical or Baptist 46%, other Christians 2 to 3%, non-Christians or other faiths 2%, and no religious affirmation 1 to 2%. For the demographics and ratio, total population approximately 47,000 people, population growth 0.6%, population density 200 people per square kilometer. All right, so continuing with the demographics and ratio, as it concerns gender. So for the male, the percentage, you have 48.5%, and the ratio 97 males per 100 females. And for the females, it's 51.5%. As it concerns the age structure, so the age group 0 to 14 years, that's 20%, 15 to 24 years, 14%, 25 to 54 years, 42%, 55 to 64 years, 12%, and 65 plus years, 12%. For the ethical composition, ethnic group, so you have the African descendants, and that's 92 to 95%. You have the mixed, multiracial, and that's 3 to 4%. The European/white, 1%. East Indian/Asian, 1%. Other uncleared, 1%. So the urban versus the rural, so resident type, so in the urban area, 32%, and the rural area, 68%. All right, so it's as it concerns migration and diaspora. So one, large diaspora communities in the US, Canada, and the UK, and the Citizens by Investment program has brought in wealthy foreign nationals, though not enough to significantly affect demographics.
We hand over to Dwayne.
All right, good night, everyone. All right, so looking at the current socio-economic position in the world with these two Caribbean islands, is that when we look at this, there's a population of over 4,800, and we must know that one of the smallest sovereign state in the world by population. Also, when you look at the area perspective for these islands, we are looking at 2,261 kilometers, right, which is the smallest country in the Western Hemisphere by land area. Now, the income classification, high income country, right, is an high income country World Bank classification. Also, when you look at the human development index, it is ranked as one of the high. Now, the currency that they use within these countries are the Eastern Caribbean dollars, right? And it is also shared with 7 other countries in the Eastern Caribbean. Looking at the notable figures within these islands, one is Sir Kennedy Simmons, which is the first prime minister who serves from 1983 to 1995. And just to add about Sir Simon, right, he was distinguished. He was a distinguished politician who he plays a vital role in country politics development and was instrumental in shaping the modern of St. Kitts and Nevis. Also, Denzel Douglas, who is the longest prime minister. And what to note about this prime minister is that he had served from 1995 to 2015. Right? His leadership significant influence the nation's development, economic, and internal relationships. Also, the third person we want to look at in this category is Kim Collins, who was a track and field icon. And many would have known that Collins would have represented St. Kitts and Nevis on the world stage and bring pride to the nation through performance, through excellent performance. Also, Brian Messi, right, is a well-known dancehall artist, right, and we in Jamaica can share with this in terms of this genre, right. He is noted within the culture screen of St. Kitts and Nevis. His contribution to the country's culture, identity, and heritage. Thank you.
Next, we hand over to Diana.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. And I'm going to speak about the history. The history of the Hispaniola, which Haiti shares with the Dominican Republic, was originally inherited by the Taino people. They called the land Ati, meaning land of high mountains. In 1492, Christopher Columbus landed on the land during his first voyage and claimed it for Spanish. In the late 1600s, France took control of the western third of Hispaniola, naming it Saint Dominique. By the 18th century, it became the wealthiest colony in the world due to its sugar and coffee plantation worked by enslaved Africans. Next slide, please. In 1804, Haiti declared its independence from France, becoming the first Black republic in the world and the first country to abolish slavery completely. The new state was named Haiti, restoring from the original Taino name. Western nations, especially France and the USA, refused to recognize Haiti independence for decades. France demanded repatriation, and Haiti was forced to pay a debt for lost slavery, property accounting to billions into today's dollars. Since the 1990s, has had a mix of democratically elected labor leaders and overthrows. Jean Bertrand Aristide, a former priest, was elected president multiple times, removed twice. In 2010, earthquake devastated Port-au-Prince, killed over 230,000 people. Repeated hurricane and earthquake have severely affected infrastructure from the economy.
We hand over to Lilith.
So I will look at the socio-political economic of Haiti, and I look at government structure, political instability, international relations, ethnic cultural identity, social changes, export and import. When we look at Haiti and its socio-political economy, it's a very complex one that comes with significant challenges. We can look at the poverty, which is, even though Haiti was doing so well, it's one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere now. As 60% of the population, it says, living below the poverty line. And we can go ahead and look at inequality. The country has one of the highest level of income inequality in the world, with a small elite controlling a large portion of the nation wealth, this is happening in so many countries of today. When we look at the unemployment, the rate stands at 14.9% as of 2023, with many Asians relying on subsistence farming or informal economies. Haiti is also very much dependent on foreign aid, and they are heavily reliant on international and remittances from the diaspora, which can create uncertainty and undermine their self-sufficiency. As it relates to their political instability, Haiti has a history of political instability with frequent coups, uprising, and assassination, which can deter investment and hinder economic growth. The country institutions are often weak, corrupt, making it difficult to implement sound economic policies and foster sustainable growth. Foreign interference has been a subject to Haiti, including international organizations and powerful nations, which can undermine its sovereignty and economic development. We can also go ahead and look at social changes, limited access to education and healthcare, as many Asians lack access to quality education, healthcare, which can limit their economic opportunities and perpetuate poverty. They also struggle with food insecurity, and in particular areas due to factors such as poverty and lack of infrastructure and natural disaster. One of the major issues in Haiti now is gang violence. The country is experiencing an escalating gang violence which can disrupt which has disrupted the economic activity, particularly in urban areas. And, there are several potential solutions that relates to investing in their human capital and diversifying the economy, as also strengthening the governance and the institution. As also, one of the most important things now is to try to get stability in that country, so this solution can be presented. Can I go to the other slide, please? The religious breakdown and the main religions. There are several religions in Haiti: the Roman Catholic, the Protestant, the Baptist, the Pentecost, the Seventh-day Adventist, and the other Protestants, the Voodoo. It is said that 40 to 60% practice Voodoo alongside Christianity. And there are also other religions like Islam, Judaism, and Rastafari. And others, about 1.2%, is unaffiliated to any religion or denomination. But the major religion in Haiti is Catholic. And then we have the Protestant and Baptist. Can you move on to the other slide, please? The gender, racial, and the demographics and racial. It says that estimated population in Haiti is 11.8 million people. Growth rate 1.2% per year. Population density is 430 people per square kilometer, one of the most densely populated country in the Western Hemisphere. And where gender ratio is concerned, it says 49.3%, 90%, 97 males per 100 female. Wow. Female is 50.7%. Oh. Demographic and racial continued. From this age group and the percentage of their population, we can see that 54% of the population is under 25 years old, as also 4.73% of the population is over 65 years old. So we can see that Haiti is not an age population at this time. And we can say that with all the instability that is happening in Haiti now, and with all these young people not in school, not being educated, not having jobs, a few years from now, how will or what will happen to this population maybe 10 or 15 years from now? That's something, that I do ponder about. The current socio-economic position in the world, Haiti remains one of the most economically challenged countries in the world and the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. The country continues to face multiple overlapping crises: political instability, gang warfare, natural disaster, poverty, and weak institutions. Next presenter. Is there a presenter after me?
Lilith has been bumped off. Diana has been bumped off, I should say.
Okay, notable figures: Toussaint Louverture, 1743 to 1803, leaders of the Haitian Revolution known as the Black Napoleon. He laid the groundwork for Haiti's independence. As also John Jacques Dessalines, 1758 to 1809, founding father and first ruler of independence Haiti, declared its independence in 1804 and became its first emperor, ordered the Essian massacre of French colonists to secure the republic. And these are our references. And thank you all for listening. I don't know if Anna have anything to say before we close out.
Good evening again. To conclude our presentation, so in comparing Haiti and St. Kitts and the Nevis, I think we would have all realized by now that both are a part of the Caribbean family, but their historical past, their population sizes, and their socioeconomic relatives are vastly different. Haiti, which is rich in revolutionary history as the first Black republic, has endured centuries of hardship, and that is due to colonial debt, political instability, natural disasters, and even external interference. However, its large population, youthful demographic, and has a vibrant culture, including its dancehall influenced music scene, and they have demonstrated a resilience and creativity of its people, even in the midst of poverty and the crisis that they go through. But on the other hand, St. Kitts and the Nevis is a small country in the Americas, and they offer a contrasting image of political stability, economic growth, and small island development. So with a much smaller population and stronger institutional structures, this country has positioned itself as a model for sustainable tourism, education, and even governance in the region. Now, both nations, they both share a strong Caribbean identity, which is shaped by colonial legacies, African heritage, and Christian-based religious traditions. Dancehall and other forms of cultural expressions continue to serve as powerful tools for them in storytelling and youth engagement in both societies. So basically, the comparison reveals that while size, resources, and politics may differ, the spirit of the Caribbean resilience and the cultural pride that all Caribbean countries share unite them, and understanding their unique struggles and strengths deepens our appreciation of the Caribbean diversity and its ongoing journey and development. That would conclude our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. I noticed that you talked about Dessalines. I was very impressed by that you guys mentioned, because previously when you do any research about Haiti and want to find information about the founders of the revolution, usually you would never hear them. You would never read in the history books or the Eurocentric or European books written by people outside of Haiti. They would talk about Oliver Toussaint, or and then 2 years ago you hear them start talking about Dottie Bookman. We've been talking about Dottie Bookman, and then over the last couple of weeks or so, people outside of Haiti is now hearing of this gentleman Dessalines, who we understand he was not educated, he was not trained in the arts of European war like that of Toussaint Louverture. He was not. He was said to be uneducated, but he was still able to lead and influence a whole these people to help to secure the Haitian Revolution, and to help to build the country. But you never hear of him. You hear of people like Oliver Toussaint and people such as C.L.R. James. C.L.R. James himself wasn't trained in the Afrocentric paradigm. He wasn't exposed to a kind of subaltern or teaching that was from below. He was more trained in a post-colonialist milieu. So although he meant well, in fact, although he meant well when he wrote the Black Jacobins, C.L.R. James wrote the Black Jacobins, and he's from Trinidad, but he went to school in the global north, and I think in the UK or the US, and then he wrote the book about, and he made some very good observation in the book, in the Black Jacobins. He talked about the physique and how the Africans that came to the New World, if that's true, you have to say that now, if it is true, because I understand that some Africans were already here, and some people were already here who were used as slaves. But it's quite interesting. They brought the Africans, and they were trained. They quickly developed the skills of plantation, plantation economy. They quickly developed the skills so that Haiti was one of the most productive within a very short time. Haiti was one of the most productive and wealthiest colony. And I understand that one of the beauties about this is that the people that came to the Caribbean, to the Hispaniola, to the Caribbean, they were of fine physique. That's how C.L.R. James described them in an interview. They were of fine physique, the African who came. They were of fine physique. They were very intelligent, skilled, well-versed in the techniques of sugar plantation, or else they would not have been handpicked to come here, because they must have been very smart and very intelligent in the outset. And he talked about that. However, what he didn't fail to mention is the fact that the founder of the revolution was Dessalines, but he was influenced by European literature, European training and education to believe that it was just Oliver Toussaint. But I appreciate what he has said about Fidel Castro. In fact, I'm going to play a bit of it for you.
inquired urgently for gold. Christopher Columbus landed first in the New World at the island of San Salvador, and after praising God, inquired urgently for gold. The natives, Red Indians, were peaceable and friendly and directed him to Haiti, a large island, nearly as large as Ireland, rich, they said, in the yellow metal. He sailed to Haiti. One of his ships being wrecked, the Haitian Indians helped him so willingly that very little was lost, and of the articles which they brought on shore, not one was stolen. The Spaniards, the most advanced Europeans of their day, annexed the island, called it Hispaniola, and took the backward natives under their protection. They introduced Christianity, forced labor in mines, murder, rape, bloodhounds, strange diseases, and artificial famine by the destruction of cultivation to starve the rebellious. These and other requirements
Sorry, not hearing. It's paused.
Sorry, he said he took. Notice how C.L.R. James described the Indians or the Taino peoples, the natives. He says the backward natives. The Spaniards took the backward natives under their protection. The Spaniards annexed the island and took the backward Spaniards under their protection. I take exception to that description. That's been ethnocentric. Okay. To the Spaniards, if anything, were backward. Not the Taino people. Okay. So I take exception to him using a colonialist mold to apply a description to a particular another set of people. That's why I said that when you look at C.L.R. James was not Afrocentric enough. C.L.R. James did not practice the Afrocentric paradigm. He was defeatist. He didn't start from a position of victory. He started from a position of defeat and a defeatist position, and continued to describe the other as how the colonials would describe them, backward. Yet his observations were important. Let's continue.
Elements of the higher civilization reduced the native population from an estimated 500,000, perhaps 1 million, to 60,000 in 15 years.
And thus it is that Dr. C.L.R. James, a very distinguished scholar, reads the first 2 paragraphs of his prologue, a remarkable book, a classic, The Black Jacobins, which deals with the Toussaint Louverture-led Black Slave Rebellion in San Domingo 2 years after the French Revolution. In these 2 paragraphs, Dr. James, your style of writing, of course, is a very salubrious one indeed, but the bite, the irony, and the truth, you might say, of white man and all these years of Western civilization, so-called, in these 2 paragraphs, you've almost essentialized it.
Yes, I think so, and I wrote it quite naturally. I didn't have to search, but I am a West Indian, and we in the West Indies are very much aware of the contrast between what the white man says and what he does, because we are Western civilized in our orientation, so we are aware of all the things he's saying, much more than people who speak a different language or live a different type of civilization.
This very point you make, which you point out, Professor James is now visiting professor at the Northwestern University. The fact that you're West Indian, this has always been a fascinating historical point, isn't it? We think among the leaders and the whole black liberation movement through the years have been West Indians.
Yes, we have had a whole lot of them. We have had Marcus Garvey. We have had Aimé Césaire, the poet, with that magnificent poem on Africa in which he stated the question of negritude. We have had René Marin, who won the Prix Goncourt with a book, Batuala, on Africa. We have had George Padmore, Marcus Garvey, as I said, and we have had, there's no doubt about it, that Malcolm X's mother was a West Indian, and that had something to do with it, and Stokely Carmichael was born and grew up there as a boy. I also took some part. I believe it is something that is worthwhile, and I know and feel myself as a West Indian as Padmore was.
It's as though two cultures are fused, in a sense.
Yes, we are not admitted completely into the Western culture, but we have all the possibilities of developing it. So on being kept back at home, we went abroad and made the best use of both the opportunities of education and the impulse towards freedom, which we felt in the islands. That is the reason why the West Indians have done so well. And I would like to add this, that Fidel Castro and the Cubans are not all black people. Fidel isn't black at all. But the attitude of the revolution and what they are doing is essentially a West Indian revolution, similar to what Toussaint Louverture did.
Yes, so we come, in fact, you have an appendix to your book, an epilogue. You wrote the book in 1938, how remarkably prescient and prophetic Professor James' book is, because he dealt with the nature of Africa and the possible independence movements back then. But the epilogue is from Toussaint Louverture to Castro. Now, Toussaint Louverture, and it's imperative, of course, that white people know this. More blacks do, or we know that younger blacks are aware of this. I had difficulty finding this book, by the way, in white bookstores. I found it at the Ellis Bookshop on South Cottage, which is significant in itself, I think.
I think the book now is being sold and read everywhere.
Yes.
I think the movement on the whole, it is being read and studied in universities predominantly white in the United States. That is a fact. Although it's the black movement that has given it the great impetus.
Perhaps we should dwell upon the nature of this book, and it's a terribly important one. It's the Black Jacobins, the subtitle, Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution. Now, here you describe a scene. The Spaniards came, the French, the British. They found a great deal of profit to be made in the West Indies, San Domingo, and Haiti. And
it was the wealthiest colony in the world at the time, not only in the West Indies.
And so, but it could only be done. You describe, of course, the slave trade and the nature of the slave ships and the incredible brutishness. So the question is, how could a people, the black people in this case, the Africans, and this, well, I'll ask you about the mulattoes in a moment, the Creoles, how could they survive is the question. This is the key.
The question is this. Number one, they were a people, obviously, who had basically a very fine physique. Otherwise, they would have been wiped away by the sheer objective circumstances of the Middle Passage and their lives. They had a fine physique, and secondly, which is a most important point, they obviously were a highly civilized people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to be integrated into the sugar production in the way that they were and learn as rapidly as they did the language and all the techniques of Western civilization. They were civilized people in Africa, and today people are more and more recognizing that even when they were slaves in Africa, they were slaves of a certain organized society. That is what must be remembered about the West Indian. And he was more fortunate than he was in the United States because the islands were small, immensely concentrated. The sugar plantation had many of them living together, so they were closely connected. And this backbone of civilization in Africa and African physical strength, and then having to learn the elements of Western civilization, made them what they did and what they have become.
So we come to several points, Dr. J.
I wanted to play just that part. That's it. There's another part where he talks about Cuba and Fidel Castro, where he defines the revolution, the nature of West Indian revolution in the 40s, the 50s, the nature of the revolution. Quite interesting. But you said here he talks about how they quickly learned the techniques of sugar production, and the fact that they were they were probably from a slave society, from a different kind of slave society. The African society was civilized. We didn't know about that, but the Africans that came from a very civilized society. In fact, and the Africans themselves that came were themselves civilized, smart, of fine physique, or else they would not have been able to manage and to journey the terrains of the transatlantic. Yeah, so this is quite interesting, quite powerful, and he talks about that quite importantly. Now, this video is available, is on YouTube. you go to Caribbean Thought Lecture Summer. Caribbean Thought Summer Lecture 2025. Caribbean Thought Summer 2025. It's there. I put it there for you guys. If you ever go to my YouTube channel, go over to click on playlist, and there are several playlists. The playlist that concerns you guys that you would want to check out is Caribbean Thought Lecture 2020, Summer 2025, because it's a Caribbean Thought 2025, but that's for semester 2. But and you guys can check it out too. But Caribbean Thought Summer 2025 is a standalone playlist with some content there for you guys as well. And this particular video is right there, so you guys can check it out. It's 46 minutes long. All right, our next group is supposed to be presenting. Who is the next group? Group 3, are you ready now? Because earlier
we're going back to group 1, sir.
Group 1, you ready? Group 1, are you ready? Group 1, are you ready? Anybody from Group 1 is here? Oh, yes?
Group 1?
All right. Why you guys can't talk? I was asking if you guys were ready and you guys weren't saying anything. All right, so this is Group 1, right? Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. You guys got the floor. All right, so welcome back. This is Caribbean Thoughts.
Right, good night,
Summer.
everyone.
Comprehensive
Group
profile
1 will
of Guyana.
be presenting on Guyana and Shane Roberts, Julia Peters, Selena Rose, and Constance. What was that, sir?
I think your computer is moving 10 minutes slow.
Situated on the northeastern coast of South America, but deeply embedded in Caribbean history and culture, is Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago. There are two nations whose identity have shaped their colonization, migration, and cultural fusion. This assignment aims to explore and compare the historic development, socio-political structures, the religious and ethnic, demographic, and the socio-economic conditions of both countries. Through this comprehensive...
Wait, guys, hold on. Who is speaking right now? Jamila, is that you?
No, this is Joyanne.
Joyanne. Okay, situated on the northeastern coast of South America, but deeply embedded in Caribbean history and culture, Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago. Is that correct? Are you saying that Guyana and Trinidad are both on the South American coast? Because Trinidad and Tobago is an island. I mean, you talk Guyana.
Guyana.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, the way how this sentence is written, it's confusing. It would suggest that. Okay, so you guys probably will have to fix that. Okay.
Yeah, this part that Trinidad and Tobago is removed. Sorry about that.
All right, go ahead. And I had to say that because this video, it's an academic institution, and other persons might see the video when I post it up on JTS. So I just want to make people know if people are watching this for educational material, we're not saying that Guyana and Trinidad is on the South American coast. All right, go ahead.
All right, so this assignment highlights how colonial legacies, migration patterns, and cultural integration have influenced the development and identity of these two Caribbean nations.
Guyana, located on the northeastern coast of South America, has a complex history influenced by colonization, migration, and cultural fusion. Originally inhabited by Arawak and Carib indigenous peoples, it was colonized by the Dutch in the 17th century and African slaves and later Indian indentured laborers were brought to work on plantations, creating the ethnically diverse society seen today. Guyana gained independence in 1966 and became a republic in 1970. But post-independence politics have often been marked by racial tension between Indo and Afro-Guyanese groups. Next slide, please. Society that was shaped by the country's colonial history. Prior to independence, the People's Progressive Party, PPP, was formed in 1950 as a multicultural party headed by Dr. Chedi Jagan and Lyndon Forms Burham. PREMDAS 2004. The form of Guyana's government can be referred to as a republic, the head of which is the president. In the role of the highest legislative body, Guyana, there is a National Assembly represented by the unicameral parliament. Being a cooperative republic and independent state within the British Commonwealth, the country is a presidential parliamentary republic. According to Grieger et al., 2013, ultimate authority nevertheless remains in the hands of the president, who may replace the cabinet minister. In other words, the president becomes the chief of the armed forces and acquires the right to suspend the work of the parliament and dismiss it. Next slide, please. The religious
Guyana
breakdown.
is,
Okay.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Guyana is,
Guyana is a religiously diverse country with three major religious traditions: Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam. Reflecting its multi-ethnic population, here is a breakdown of main religions in Ghana based on the most recent available census and research. Christianity, 63%, which it's the majority religion. Hinduism, 24.8%. Islam, 6.8%. No religion, that is none, 3.1%. Other religions, 2.3%, which includes Rastafarian, Baha'i faith, Buddhism, and indigenous beliefs. I now hand over to Julia Peters.
Good night. Next slide, please.
The demographics and racial makeup of Guyana. That's the one you're doing, Julia. So you can start now.
Okay. The demographics and racial makeup of Guyana. one of the Caribbean most ethical verse nations of Guyana, which is situated on the northern coast of South America. Guyana is cultural Caribbean dispute being on the South American mainland, and its distant democratic are a result of centuries of colonization, immigration, and intellectual contract. The nation identity is defined by the diverse ethnic groups, language, and faiths that make up its population. Population overview, ethnic composition, language and religion, age and immigration trends. Next slide.
Hold on. Don't move to the next slide. Who was speaking just now?
Julia.
Julia. So,
sir,
tell me about the population of Guyana.
Population in terms, sir?
You say that the nation's identity is defined by the diverse ethnic groups. Can you tell me about two of the diverse ethnic groups that's in Guyana? And do you know what languages do they speak? And I mean, can you tell me about the diverse ethnic group? What makes them so diverse? And so on. Can you tell me a bit? And before you answer that, just so you know, you guys are going to tell me about Trinidad, but Trinidad is, you know that Trinidad is in the southern part of the Caribbean. So the southern part of the Caribbean Sea, the southern part of the Caribbean, it's part of the Lesser Antilles. You guys know that, okay? So just so you know, I know you meant southern, but in the southern part of the Caribbean Sea. But yes, tell me a little bit about these ethnic groups in Guyana. And tell me about them and how much, there are people. The Urban Indian Heritage Society is of the opinion that African slaves weren't brought to these places, to the Caribbean. In fact, the amount of African slaves that were brought to the Caribbean weren't the amount of African slaves that were brought to the Caribbean. That's what they're saying. The Urban Indian Heritage Society. Researchers are saying that. They've been to the class. We've invited them. They were supposed to be here, but I haven't had a chance to get them here because I've been very busy. But we've had lectures with them talking about presenting their research and their findings. I'm going to add it to the YouTube and to the class Moodle. But they have said that as I listened to your presentation, you said that African slaves and Indians were brought to the Caribbean, to Guyana, which has helped to give rise to the diverse cultures that they have. That in the Guyana, the indentured laborers from India and China, and of course those from Africa. But the Urban Indian Heritage Society, they are saying that persons' heritage or their race or their ethnicities have been misclassified or reclassified strategically to dissociate themselves or to dissociate and to prevent these peoples from any benefits, from any inheritance that should be accorded to them. The Caribbean people, because if you show ownership to the land, if they say, if you are of the land, then the land belongs to you and you can claim it. This is how Israel can claim the land. If these Africans say that they're actually Indians living in the Caribbean, being passed off as Africans, then, and even it's worse in Jamaica because they said the Indians or the Taino people, Arawakan tribes, they were completely wiped out. Now we're hearing that might not necessarily be true. Okay, and in Guyana, and in Belize, and in many parts of some of these islands, many of the original peoples were still there. It was not necessarily true that they were wiped out. In fact, we're hearing that Christopher Columbus never even set foot in parts of the Caribbean, on the mainland. But the point I'm making is the Urban Indian Heritage Society is saying that it is not true that all these people who live in the Caribbean in Guyana came from Africa. They were already living there, okay? And so they were enslaved. And so that's what they have done DNA tests. But what is happening is that if you were to go to ancestry.com or do some kind of DNA, a lot of DNA testing is not necessarily reliable to African and black and brown people. What they have is a kind of philosophy, okay, that speaks true to their narrative about where they believe these people are from, okay? Their history is dwarfed by intelligence and hard facts and data and research, and by a colonialist milieu. Okay, so now the Urban Indian Heritage Society, they have their own testing done. You can go to the Urban Indian UIHS.org, and you can find out some more information about them and what they're saying. They also talk about the Caribbean. They did a big research in Guyana that helps us to revisit and rethink about the ethnic composition of and makeup of Guyana and people in the Caribbean. Now, of course, we know that many Africans came to Africa. They were civilized, and so there was a lot of travel, a lot of sailors and people that came from Africa to the Caribbean before Europeans started coming in. Maybe they lived here as well and created a society, and what we call them Indians is really Africans that came here, and we give them their names and they call themselves that. And many of them were enslaved, and maybe what when C.L.R. James said that they quickly learned the technique of sugar planting, they quickly learned it because they were already doing it and they already knew it. But what I would love for you guys, as you think about, but you did mention when you have a presentation and you talk about this ethnic makeup, please remember to tell me a little bit about the ethnic makeup of this group, the diverse group.
All right, sir, can I assist?
Yeah.
We will get to that, sir.
Oh, you're gonna move on. You're gonna get there.
Yes, sir. It's in it. We'll get to that.
So we're gonna. I have some information on the population overview and so on. So since you asked Julie for it and she couldn't present, I'm asking you if I can go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. According to the World Factbook 2024, Guyana's population is expected to reach 794,099 by 2024, with a nearly equal distribution of 405,244 men and 388,855 women. The majority of people live near the shore, especially in Georgetown, the nation's capital, making it a very sparsely populated country. About 27.2% of the people live in urban areas, indicating a moderate level of urbanization with a median age of about 28.3 years. The population has a rather young demographic composition. As it relates to ethnic composition, there are numerous significant ethnic groups that make up Guyana's population. With 39.8% of the population, the Indo-Guyanese are the largest ethnic group and are described from Indians who were transported to Guyana as indentured servants by the British in the 19th century. At 29.3%, the Afro-Guyanese, who were descended from African slaves, make up the second largest group. Amerindians, Guyanese indigenous people, make up 10.5% of the population, while people of mixed race make up 19.9%. Excuse me. Other ethnic groups such as, other ethnic groups such as Portuguese, Chinese, and Europeans make up a tiny portion of the population, around 0.5%. The nation's social, cultural, and political life has been influenced by this ethnic distribution, with Indo and Afro-Guyanese communities traditionally holding important positions in religious life, economic development, and national politics. Language and religion. Guyana's official language is English, which is utilized in the media, administration, and educational system. But in casual context, Guyanese Creole and English-based African Indian and Amerindians linguistic influences
Go ahead. Are you still there? Hello?
I think she dropped off, sir. I think she dropped off.
Do you guys have the members of the group you guys can pick up? So we're talking about language and
Hello?
yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, you're talking
Hello?
about language, but can you summarize? You're talking
Yes,
about
so
language.
right.
Yeah.
All right. So influences is frequently used. Mandarin among Chinese Guyanese, Hindustani, and native Amerindians dialects are examples of minority languages. In Guyana, religious allegiance closely corresponds with ethnicity. About 64% of the population is Christian, which includes members of Protestant, Catholic, and other Christian groups. Islam is practiced by 6.8% of the population, whereas Hinduism, which is mostly practiced by Indo-Guyanese, make up 24.8%. Rastafarians, Baha'i, Jehovah's Witness, and adherents of indigenous faiths are among more minor religions. Age and migration trends. The population of Guyana is comparatively young, with 68.4% of people between the ages of 15 and 64, and 23.5% of people under the age of 15. The percentage of people 65 and older is only 8.1%. With a migration rate of minus 6.6 migrants per 1,000 people, the nation has been steady net immigration despite its youthful population. This is primarily so because of economic hardships and the desire for better opportunities overseas, particularly in North America and in the United Kingdom. So you can continue, Julia.
All right. Okay. We don't have much time. We're talking about the Guyana's economics.
Okay.
Hold on a second. I noticed a trend in terms of the people. Population of 30% of the, you said the world fact. The next time you get information like this, I mean, the world fact book is from where? It's from Guyana. Somebody, you got it from the Caribbean, from Guyana. The world fact book. Did they get it from Guyana? The information. Where's the world fact book coming from? Is the world fact book a Caribbean published book or what? Where's that book? That's an overseas book, right?
Yes, sir. It's an overseas book.
Oh, please, guys, if you're doing Caribbean thought, try and get information from like the embassies or JIS or or something like that. Please don't, for my class for Caribbean thought, please don't promote these foreigners stuff. Promote your own stuff. Okay. Now,
Okay.
the
Okay,
second thing
sir.
I want to talk about is Guyana is a diverse nation. 39.8% of the population is of East Indian origin. You said that. But notice you
Yes.
but you notice the converse of the converse. You notice something. You notice something here. Although 39.8, almost 40% of the population is of East Indian origin. 28.4%, almost 30% of the population practices Hindu. You notice that? 30%
Yes.
practice Hindu. And it could be more because Hindu is a religion that is is one of those religions that where they can have a multiplicity of gods or a multiplicity of faith experience. You can still be Hindu and Christian according to the Hindu. So, and you can go to so it's really difficult to ask a Hindu. You can go to somebody and say, "Are you a Christian?" And if they are Hindu who embrace Christianity, they'll say yes. And so therefore, the data can be skewed a bit. So you have to bear that in mind. 1, 2, Guyana, 40%. That is East Indian. We know in India, the dominant religion is Hindu in India. Many of them come from India as indentured laborers. That's what we say, but not necessarily so. Many of them. But, however, that's the case. But 30% of the population, 30% practice Hinduism. 40%, they say that is East Indians. And 30% of this 40% identify themselves as purely Hindu. Now, let's look at the other one. 30% identify themselves as Black African. 30%. And how many of this 30%, how many of them practice any kind of Santeria or any kind of indigenous or Afro-Caribbean faiths? How many of this 30%, how many practice, where do you see Afro-Caribbean faiths and tradition? 0.5% are Rastafarians, 0.1% Baha'i, and 2.2 other faiths. And the other faiths they're talking about involves other African traditions, Santiri, Obia, Voodoo. So so 20%, 30% identify as African, and then 20% are multiracial. Multiracial means I consider themselves Black and white and other stuff. But it's interesting that of the 20% who are African or of African ancestry, only about 2.2%, 2.5%, let's say 2.5%, 2.5% practice some kind of Afro-Caribbean traditional beliefs, have some kind of traditional or African beliefs. It's quite, I noticed that. I was noticing that. I noticed that. The East Indian embrace their traditions, but the Africans in Guyana, only 2.5% embrace their traditions. And then in terms of how many of them are Pentecostals, 16.9% Pentecostal, 8.1% Catholic. That's about 20%. And then you have the Anglican, 7.2%, 6.9%, and so on and so forth. But it's quite interesting. So the Hindus are more likely to embrace their traditions as against the Africans who are in Guyana. They seem to they barely practice it. The second thing is as it relates to language. A language in this class, English is a language. But Patois is also a language. It's Creole. in the world, in this Western world. But in our eyes, Creole is a language. So that is why some people find it very difficult to read, in my class, to read English. They find it difficult to read English because they speak another language, and they speak. Some people we're in Jamaica. The class is in the stage. What's the state of the class? The stage, the setting. The class is in the Caribbean. The class is in Jamaica. The class is in Guyana. And I mean, of course, we try to find a common language. The common language, I guess, for us is English. If in Jamaica, then they speak Jamaican and so on. But it's quite interesting. But for us, we identify Creole as a language, because to say that another person's language is not a language, it's a Creole or a dialect. In other words, you are feeding into this ethnocentric milieu of calling the other a half of a thing. Yes? But anyways, continue. Let's hear about the socioeconomic position of Guyana. What's going on with Guyana?
Okay. All right, the socioeconomic position, all right? Guyana's economy has been centered around the production of primary commodities in the sectors of agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, and quarrying. Secondarily, the economy also comprises services, manufacturing, and construction. Since the liberalization of the economy, the resource-based industry have been thriving and constitute a significant portion of economic activity in Guyana. Significant quantities of oil and gas produce 120,000 barrels per day in 2021 and approximately 750,000 barrels per day by 2026. This sector, when juxtaposed against the rest of Guyana's economy, is mammoth, and when combined with the other resource-based sectors, streamlines Guyana's economy as a resource-based economy. Next slide, please. Influential and noble figures of Guyana. Chedi Jagan, founding father of Guyana, who co-founder of the PPP party and first elected president. He fought for independence and workers' rights and led with a focus on social justice. Forbes Burnham, Guyana's first executive president and co-founder of the PNC, he led the country to independence in 1966 and promoted self-reliance and nationalization. Janet Jagan, first female president of Guyana and a strong advocate for women's rights, health, and education. She played a key political role alongside her husband, Chedi Jagan. Walter Rodney, historian and political activist known for this book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. He championed equality and was assassinated in 1980 for his activism.
Are you guys hearing?
No, we're not hearing.
We just wanted to incorporate the language of
Move on to the next slide, please.
Okay, guys. I just want you guys to know that Guyana has been growing rapidly since 2022. Okay, I am very critical of the growth in Guyana because what I have said is that the growth, I don't know if they can sustain the growth, and the growth and the development can be short-lived if they are not, if they have not learned to move beyond the resource-based economy and or natural resources, and their inability to diversify and to diversify the economy as it grows rapidly. Not only that, because they lack the capital intensive, they have to borrow a lot of money, and so they have high fiscal deficits. Despite this, the IMF and many others are still gloating and boasting about Guyana and the development. That Guyana is developing and they are spending in infrastructure, but they have a high amount of debt or fiscal, and the fiscal deficit and the debt can help to limit Guyana's involvement in the decision making of their country, and that is what the IMF or the structural adjustment represents. Huge investment or huge aid. Jamaica had bauxite, and there was a lot of investment in Jamaica, and Jamaica was growing rapidly, but it was not sustainable. And this is the point I am making constantly, that Caribbean economies, Caribbean countries have to be mindful. They must study history. We are not attuned to it. Okay, Guyana is first of all, they're only making 12% of their investment. In fact, they have gotten so much investment, loans, that right now, and the fact that also the skills and the technocrat and the know-how, a lot of their people come from overseas. So they have to invest in the infrastructure. They have to invest in their education and their people. They have to diversify their economies to go in line with this rapid growth and this development. At the same time, they have to ensure that they don't experience a kind of boom where it affects the other economies because, say, for example, agriculture and so on and so forth. Very important. And you have to ensure that you are investing heavily in your people. So it's looking good for Guyana in one sense, but it's not looking good for them because right now they owe a lot of money. They when you look at their fiscal deficit, it's high. That has and that's not going to change if they are squandering their windfall profits. If corruption still remains high in Guyana, okay, and a lot of the funds are going overseas and they are spending minimally in infrastructure in Guyana. Guyana is growing rapidly, but Guyana is still behind. Okay, let's see what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago. After this presentation, we will end the class.
The history of Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago, a twin island republic in the southern Caribbean, was discovered by Christopher Columbus in 1498. Trinidad became a Spanish colony, while Tobago changed colonial hands multiple times before both islands were unified under British control by the early 19th century. The abolition of slavery in 1834 led to the arrival of Indian indentured laborers, significantly shaping the country's ethnic and political landscape. In 1888, the islands were joined into one colony. The decline of the sugar industry and the rise of oil production from 1910 altered the economy, while labor movements in the 1920s began the push for political reform. Key milestones include universal suffrage in 1946 and internal self-government by 1961. Independence was achieved in 1962. The People's National Movement, PNM, led by Eric Williams, dominated politics for decades, with Afro-Trinidadians supporting the PNM and Indo-Trinidadians largely aligning with the Democratic Labour Party, reflecting the nation's ongoing ethnic and political division. Next slide, please. Socio-political position of Trinidad and Tobago. Situated on the northeast coast of Venezuela, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is a twin island country that, along with 19 other countries, forms a Caribbean community, CARICOM. The country gained its independence in 1962 and follows the Westminster model of government, which is essentially a democratic system of government shaped according to that of the United Kingdom. Trinidad and Tobago got independence in 1962 and currently its government operates under a parliament democracy system which evidently resembles the UK government system. To illustrate, the state follows a two-party system and a bicameral parliamentary system. The president is the head of the state while the prime minister is the head of government. Trinidad and Tobago operates under a constitutional framework that defines and regulates the structure and functions of its government. The country's constitution was established in 1976 and has since undergone several amendments to adapt to the changing needs of its citizens. Next slide, please. Religious breakdown of Trinidad and Tobago. The diverse religious landscape of Trinidad and Tobago reflects the many migrations and transnational religious connection in the country's colonial and post-colonial history. The religions are Roman Catholic, 21.6%, Hindu, 18%, Pentecostal and Evangelical, 12%, and Anglican, 5.7%, Muslim, 5.0%, Baptist, 6.9%, other Christians, 25.6%, Jehovah's Witness, 1.5%, no religion, 2.2%, others, 1.5%. Next slide, please.
By the way, as you get to the next slide, bicameral, some of the students might be sitting down saying, "What is bicameral? What are you talking about? What's bicameralism?"
Sir, to tell you the truth, I'm not so sure what it is.
Oh, well, well, I mean, if you don't know what it is, then I don't think you should have used that word because, of course, what if somebody asks you, "Excuse me, what is bicameral?" Of course, it's the 21st century. It's very easy to look up now and find it. But it's a legislative system of government like that of the US, okay? Just that's what it is. Simply. Especially in certain democratic systems, they practice that bicameralism. The same thing happened in Jamaica. That's the system we have in Jamaica as well. In the Western world, that practice a kind of democracy. That's what we have. But not necessarily so in like Cuba, Venezuela. Maybe Venezuela have it, I'm not sure, but Cuba and so on don't have they don't have a bicameral system with a Senate and the House of Representatives or whatever. Okay. All right, continue. Go ahead.
All right. As of the most recent data available, the demographics and racial makeup of Trinidad and Tobago are characterized by a diverse population, shaped by a history of colonialism, slavery, and indentureship. The country is known for its ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity. The total population for Trinidad is approximately 1.53 million. This is from the Central Statistic Office of Trinidad and Tobago 2023, World Bank 2023. Some of the ethnic groups are Hindu Trinidadians, 35.4%, Afro-Trinidadian, 34.2%, Mixed African Indian, 7.7%, others, 15.3%, European, 0.3%, Syrian and Lebanese, 0.1%, and indigenous Caribs, 0.1%, others, 6.3%.
Wait, is this
Next.
Guyana? Wait, hold up. Is this the makeup
No,
of the
no,
demographic?
this is Trinidad. We're doing the mix it up.
No, but look at
Oh
your
boy.
heading. It
Is
says,
it? We're not doing Guyana, guys.
wait, no,
All
no.
right, all right, sir.
The heading says Guyana, but I think it's an error. I think it's an error.
Okay.
I think you're talking about Trinidad, yes? But you...
Yes, we're talking about Trinidad, sir.
All right. Okay.
All right, can I get the next slide, please?
Yeah, I think
Hello?
this is the slide now. We didn't go through did we talk about the socioeconomic position of Trinidad as yet? I don't think we did that.
No. This is the first time we're talking about this.
Okay. So I think we are at the slide now, though. You haven't talked about this yet.
Yeah. Okay, so can I get the next slide, please? Guys?
This is a slide, Constance.
Is the slide finished? Because I read this a while ago, right?
Oh, you talked about the no, I don't think you've spoken about the socioeconomic.
No, you didn't.
No.
Okay. Okay, the economy is largely based on oil and gas production, with the petroleum and petrochemical industries accounting for about 37% of GDP and ores and oil mineral fuel over 70% of exports. 2015 data. The country has also become a major financial center in the Caribbean. Trinidad and Tobago's primary sector, primarily agriculture, thrives due to its tropical climate and abundant natural resources, with 10.53% of the land dedicated to agriculture. The country produces a variety of crops and animal products. The main agricultural products include chicken, fruits, coconut, citrus fruits, plantain, maize, egg, orange, tomatoes, and bananas. With a diverse geological landscape, Trinidad and Tobago is rich in natural resources. Its primary sector thrives on petroleum, natural gas, and asphalt extraction, driving the economy through export and revenue generation.
All right. Okay. Let's not read anymore.
Okay.
Okay, but I get it now in terms of the socioeconomic. No, go back to the socioeconomic position, if you don't mind. I wanted to make a point real quick because I'm not leaving. We're going to end at 10, but I wanted to make the point.
Yes.
Look at the socioeconomic position. I mean, we are social scientists. We're academics. We are at a university as thinkers. We are devoting ourselves and our time to thinking and considering about life. It is through this that we develop perspective, and from that we have conversation that that becomes policy. But we are here doing it. We are, as academics, as scientists, social scientists, we're looking at things in society, we're looking at things in life, looking at how things come together. We're looking at patterns. That's what you do. When you look and start to observe, that's what scientists is. We're observing, we're looking at patterns, we're looking at life, looking at the thread of life, formulating opinions based on all our reading, all of our exposure, all of our tools, all of the isms, the system, the standards. And as I sat here, and over the years, as I do this class, and I change it and I do things, and I'm so happy I'm doing this. I noticed something, as I listen to the other presentation and I listen to you guys, You guys talked about what Trinidad has to offer, talked about what St. Kitts has to offer. As much as these Caribbean islands are small and vulnerable and they have challenges, they have a lot to offer. They have a lot of resources. They're rich in resources. The Caribbean, they have every single Caribbean island has what another Caribbean island needs. Okay? Every single one. Guyana has oil. Jamaica doesn't have oil necessarily. They say they found oil or something like that. They're exploring that now, but we know what Guyana has a lot of oil. Venezuela has oil. Trinidad has oil. Several other countries throughout the region have oil. Jamaica has bauxite. Guyana has bauxite, I think. You know, all the island, Guyana has chicken and fruits and coconuts and citrus and plantains, and Jamaica has rice and sugar but you know, all these islands have something to offer. Right now, there is a relationship between Cuba and Jamaica, and I think the relationship between Cuba and Jamaica would have been much stronger if it weren't for the embargo by the US placed on Cuba. But it's like a puzzle piece. Look at the puzzle piece and you connect the dots into this whole. And I'm saying to you that if all the Caribbean islands and peoples would come together in a strategic, in a united way, then, you know, say for example, Guyana needs to improve their capital intensive capability. And so as a CARICOM, what is CARICOM doing to help with that, to help meet that need? But what Guyana has done is that they have gone outside of the Caribbean. They have gone outside of the Caribbean, which they are only looking out for their own interests. Okay, their own interests, which is something that you guys have to think about as well. But if you look at the resources, the economic resources, the Caribbean has a lot to offer. And as young people, or as the future, as the now, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to continue to do things as they are, as we learn and as we discover? What does that mean? By the way, so thank you so much for presenting. I think we are out of time. I think, by the way, have you guys talked about the major figures and influences in these spaces? Have you guys talked about that? In Guyana, Walter Rodney comes to mind. You guys know about Walter Rodney?
Yes, sir. We heard you spoke about him.
You guys are going to talk about him too? You guys have him on there?
No, we spoke about him, sir.
You did?
We spoke about him?
For Guyana?
In terms of Guyana, did you talk about Walter Rodney? I don't remember you talking about. You spoke
No, sir, we did not talk about him.
Who did you talk about? You talked about...
Yeah, Walter Rodney. It's there. It's there. Walter
Of course, it's there.
It's there.
He was mentioned, sir, in the presentation. He was mentioned.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, he was. He's a major figure. If you don't leave this class, you don't leave this class. All right, good. So he was mentioned. Walter, tell me, I mean, what's the story behind Walter Rodney? He wrote a book. What's the name of the book? He wrote a book. What's the name of the book?
Constance, you mentioned the book earlier.
Yes, but what's the name of that book?
Europe underdeveloped Africa.
I know. Is there anything? Can you add it to your presentation by telling me a little bit how did he say that Europe underdeveloped Africa?
So we didn't get into the book itself, really.
Okay, that is something that that is something. If you, boy, the guy, he is a major major figure. And by the way, there is a lecture. Let me see if I have a lecture that I presented. I was just I sent it to you guys already. You guys have it there. Caribbean Thought Lecture on Walter Rodney. You might see it there. But of course, he's a scientist. He's a historian. He's renowned. He's known for his academic work, but he's also was a political leader. He was an active member of the Working People's Alliance, WPA. Was friends with Michael Manley. Of course, some people in JLP didn't really like him, because JLP was more seen to be more aligned with Reagan and with the international regime or with the West, while the others were with the East. Michael Manley and these people were aligned with the East, with the Soviets, the communists, and they had banned. I hear you mention Burnham. Burnham is not somebody who many people love. He claimed to be he was a socialist, he was a dictator, and he maintained a repressive regime in Guyana. Although he had friendly ties in the U.S., he held power through rigged elections and suppression of opposition parties and trade unions. And it's quite interesting that this is exactly what I'm talking about. The U.S. is a bastion for peace and hope and justice and democracy, but here we have Burnham was in Guyana in the 70s, 80s, he had a repressive regime and was a dictator. They were willing to hold on to a dictator in Guyana, but still preach democracy and diplomacy, because Burnham was going to hold down the fort and represent American interest. He held power through rigged elections and suppression of opposition parties. And Walter Rodney was aware of this, and he chose to work with Guyana to bring about change. And because of that, he was assassinated and drawing international condemnation for figures like Michael Manley, Maurice Bishop, Fidel Castro. Quite an interesting figure, but we don't have time for that to talk about that today. I will share an article about the whole thing with Walter Rodney, because he was even banned from coming to Jamaica. The Jamaican government, yes, banned him. Okay, and they said that he couldn't come here in the 80s, and of course later on he was assassinated, and many believe that he was assassinated by Burnham. But this is where we end class today.
So can I ask a question before you end?
Yeah.
Grenada.
Yeah.
Maurice Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
His assassination. And I've heard several times that our Jamaican, Trevor Monroe, who was living in Grenada at that time, have you ever heard that he has anything to do with it?
Trevor Monroe.
I've heard several times persons call even Cliff Hughes and say, call Trevor Monroe, have that discussion, what went on in Grenada. And to date, he always say it's not an interview that he will accommodate.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but he's in Jamaica, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Trevor Monroe has anything to do with Maurice Bishop at all.
Okay, great.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And Trevor Monroe probably would have been 10 years old or
right
or 20. It makes, I don't know. Absolutely not. Okay. But
okay,
I'm going to share some resources about Walter Rodney later on, and I put it up on Moodle for you guys as well. I also wrote a paper that looks at why Walter Rodney says that Europe underdeveloped Africa. Of course, I believe that Walter Rodney was not Afrocentric enough, so he was still using a Eurocentric ideology based in communism to talk about Africa. Okay, because he believed that Europe underdeveloped Africa because Africa was bucolic. But no, Africa was always a bucolic, was a communal society. Okay, the society of Africa is so we will talk about that later on. I do not believe that because our understanding of economic systems would help him to know to make a determination about Africa being underdeveloped. Of course, Africa was bastardized. Africa was reinvented in Europe's eye, or well, an attempt was made, but in some instances they were successful, but in other instances they were not. But that's for another debate. That's the end. That's it for class today, guys. Thank you so much. I will be in an interview on Friday, talking about Jamaica, talking about neoliberalism, globalization, income inequality, talking about the elections in Jamaica, talking about what the expectations are, talking about the history of Jamaica and the Caribbean and how governments have reshaped and helped to undo Caribbean and what we must do as a people. The answer doesn't lie in JLP or PNP. Okay. The answer lies.
Send us a link in the group so we can log on if it's possible.
I will send it. I'm going to ask Chantal.
Okay.
But thank you guys. Next week we'll have group 2. Oh, by the way, I know Trinidad. Oh, icon of music and culture. Oh, there's a guy from Trinidad who lives here in Philadelphia near me. He's a reggae art. He's an artist, and I had him on the show. He's quite interesting figure, powerful, from Trinidad. But he does a music called Parang music. Do you know what Parang music is?
No, sir.
No, it's not Parang. Sorry. Oh my God. Jesus. Chantel, are you there? Chantel. There is a name. Oh my God. No, that's not what it is. It's not. Is it Parang? The Trinidadians who sing Jamaican reggae. There's a name for that. It's not Parang. There's another name for it. Do you know the name? Do you guys know the name? All right. That's my homework for us. Anybody who can guess, if you can guess that, you're going to get a prize. If you can guess, tell me the name of the music. The people who did Trinidad. What you call Trinidadians who sing reggae music? What do you call them? Or what the music called? They have a name. They don't call it Trinidad. They don't call it reggae or dancehall. They call it another name. All right, that's your homework.
Is it Calypso?
No.
Calypso or something like so?
Calypso is Calypso, but there is reggae music in Trinidad. Is called. What's it called? Oh, I don't know, sir. It's not. I can't. And it's no. You can't even Google it. You can't.
Sir, would it be chutney?
No.
Sure.
I can't believe I don't have that. You know what? I'll give it to you next week. I am
married. Sir, is it a skank rhythm?
No. Is it this is it. Here's the guy. Let me see. King Sawa. No, it's not. But I discovered it while I was walking in my neighborhood, and oh my God, why are they doing this to me? I was walking in my neighborhood and I discovered a reggae artist, and he told me about this music, and I had him on the show. Okay. Here we go. And it was in my. I don't think it's Parang. In my head it's saying it's Parang, but my heart is saying it's not Parang.
Sir, is it Trinidad?
Who said that?
Shannon.
Shannon, I owe you a gift.
Yes, sir.
Shannon, very good.
You can just send one book. So you can just give her a book for free.
Give her a book.
Sir, give her a book, sir.
No, she already bought it.
No book.
No
Yes,
book.
give her a book for free. How is she going to get a gift?
I
Give
will
her
think
a book
about it.
for
But
free.
I have a
Sir
gift.
will arrange that, Tasha.
I will speak with you off the air, Shannon. I have a gift for you. I will give you a gift. I'll arrange for you to get you a gift. But wait,
Thank you, sir.
Shannon, do you have a book though?
No, I don't have a book, sir.
Shannon?
I was actually using Natasha's book, sir.
Chantel? Chantel? She's off. I'll talk with you off the air, Shannon, okay? Because of that.
Okay, sir.
How did you get the answer?
Sir, I have friends all over the world, and I have persons in the music business.
Oh my God, very good. It's called Trinidad. So and probably I wish I could have him back. I wish this class was long. We have a Caribbean Thought 1 and Caribbean Thought 2 because I would have brought him to the show, to the class and have him talk about Trinidad. And he's also an Israeli priest from Trinidad, black man living in Philadelphia, and he's an Israeli priest. A small group of people who says that they are the true Israelite who come from the Caribbean and say that Caribbean people, in fact, what he says is that when Caribbean people play music in Africa, the Africans are saying, wow, that's interesting, that's beautiful. We don't play our drums like you. Our second beat is not, we drop it on the third, not the second. And so now they are saying, wait, the African people from the people from Caribbean, are they from the Africa today? I'm telling you, man, when you read and discover, it's quite unique. It doesn't make you less. Somebody says the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know. So when you do your, even when you do the more masters you do, the more PhD. As I do my masters and my PhD and my doctorate and so on, the more you know, the more you don't know. So you become humble, because even what you know may be undone. I'm telling you, man. So be humble with wherever you are in life, because that's what Jesus. It was be humble, even if you think you know what you know more than the other. Be humble with it. Be humble, because again, God is unlimited. We are limited. We make use of our limitation. God makes use of our limitations. Okay, God reveals Himself in His limitless possibilities. He reveals Him, and in our limited ways, we understand it in 1 and 2 and 3 ways, or in 5 sentences. In 5 senses, we are limited by our senses, but God transcends that, and He reveals Himself, and we interpret it in our limited ways. Yet we have sought to universalize in our limitations. May we not be humble? That's class. Take care.